जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा गोकुलनंद राधा गोकुलनंद राधे जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय गौरानिताय 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 जय गौरानिताय जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रीला प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा श्रीला गुरुदेवा निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सतश्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सतश्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्णा गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की नवद्वीप धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की हरिनाम संकीर्तन की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada. We are reading from second canto, chapter 8. Questions by King Parikshit, text 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maybe we can do word by word and then line by line. We can read like that. Pravishtaha Karnarandrena Pravishta Karnarandrena Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Sararuham Dhunot, Swanam Bhava Saroruham Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dhunoti Shamalam Krishna Dhunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilisya Yatha Sharat Salilasya Yatha Sharat Salilasya Yatha Sharat. Okay, now we'll read the whole verse line by line. Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilisya Yatha Sharat Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat Pravishtaha Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Samalam Krishna Sarirasya Yatha Sharat Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Samalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Samalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat. Ladies? Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Samalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Samalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat Pravishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Samalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat. Okay, word for word with the meaning. Pravishtaha, thus being entered. Karnarandrena, through the holes of the ears. Swanam, according to one's liberated position. Bhava, constitutional relationship. Sararuham, the lotus flower. Dunoti, cleanses. Shamalam, material qualities like lust, anger, avarice and hankering. Krishna, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Salilasya, of the reservoir of waters. Yatha, as it were. Sharat, the autumn season. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus, it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. Please repeat. The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus, it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. Purport. It is said that a single pure devotee of the Lord can deliver all the fallen souls of the world. Thus, one who is actually in the confidence of a pure devotee like Narad or Shukdev Goswami, and thus is empowered by one spiritual master, as Narad was by Brahmaji, can not only deliver himself from the clutches of Maya or illusion, but can deliver the whole world by his pure and empowered devotional strength. The comparison to the autumnal rain that falls on muddy reservoirs of water is very appropriate. During the rainy season, all the waters of the rivers become muddy. But in the month of July August, the autumn season, when there is a slight rainfall, the muddy waters of the rivers all over the world become at once clear. By addition of some chemical, a small reservoir of water like that of a metropolitan waterworks tank can be cleared, but by such a tiny effort, it is not possible to clear up all the reservoirs of water like the rivers. A powerful pure devotee of the Lord, however, can deliver not only his personal self, but also many others in his association. In other words, the cleansing of the polluted heart by other methods, like the culture of empiric knowledge or mystic gymnastics, can simply cleanse one's own heart. But devotional service to the Lord is so powerful that it can cleanse the hearts of the people in general by the devotional service of the pure, empowered devotee. A true representative of the Lord like Narad, Shukdev Goswami, Lord Chaitanya, the six Goswamis, and later Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur and Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, etc., can deliver all people by their empowered devotional service. By sincere efforts to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, one realizes his constitutional relationship with the Lord in the transcendental humor of servitude, friendship, paternal affection, or conjugal love. And by such self realization, one becomes situated at once in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Not only were all the pure devotees like Narad self realized souls, but they were engaged in preaching work automatically by spiritual impetus, and thus they delivered many poor souls entangled in the material modes. Thus, they became so powerful because they sincerely followed the Bhagavatam principles by regular hearing and worshipping. By such actions, the accumulated material lust, etc., become cleansed by the personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. The Lord is always within the heart of the living being, but he becomes manifested by one's devotional service. Purification of the heart by culture of knowledge or mystic yoga may be all right for the time being for an individual person, but it is like the cleansing of a small quantity of stagnant water by chemical processes. Such clarification of water may stand for the time being, and the sediments settle down, but by a slight agitation, everything becomes muddy. The idea is that devotional service to the Lord is the only method of cleansing the heart for good, whereas other methods may be superficially good for the time being. There is a risk of becoming muddy again due to the agitation of the mind. Devotional service to the Lord with specific attention for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and always is the best recommended method for liberation from the clutches of illusion. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Udmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanjakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhube Evacha Nitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langaite girim yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurun Dina Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome to the morning program. Thank you for coming and request blessings of all the devotees assembled here and those who are watching online. So we can speak something worthwhile on this topic of Srimad Bhagavatam and for my own purification as well. So I'll just repeat the translation once more. The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So the point here is, as we were reading yesterday as well, that by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, it's so important to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we have an opportunity to invite Lord in our heart. Actually, Lord is already in our heart, sitting as Paramatma, as we were discussing yesterday also. But to realize Krishna in our heart, that is up to us. So, to the degree one has developed the loving relationship with the Lord, to that degree we can feel the presence of Krishna in our heart. Somebody asks once to Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, how can we realize Krishna in our heart? So Prabhupada answered, he just gave a very simple answer from Bhagavad Gita. He said, Ye yatha mam prapadante, tam sathe bhajamyaham. So he said, to the degree you surrender, to that degree Krishna will reciprocate and you can feel the presence of Krishna in the heart. So this verse is talking about that Krishna will enter into the heart, which means Krishna is already there. Like Prabhupada says, Krishna is already in the heart, but it will manifest by one's devotional service. So Krishna is there sitting in the heart, but he'll manifest in according to one's devotional service. So it's devotional service is nothing but developing a loving relationship with the Lord. And it's mentioned here, Prabhupada says that even the great mystic yogis, there are so many great mystic yogis who are trying so hard to meditate on the Lord in their heart for many, many years. And still they find it very difficult. It takes lifetimes sometimes for them to meditate because it's a very difficult process for them and it can take long time. But even then if they do it, the maximum what they can do is they can just cleanse their own hearts. But here Prabhupada is mentioning that a pure devotee can deliver the whole world. A pure devotee can not only for himself, not only he does his sadhana for himself, but he does for the benefit of others as well. So it's not just about our own benefit. A devotee thinks for others' benefits also. So how is it to do it? Basically, in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that we have to be sincere in our efforts, and when we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we have to give our full attention. We have to give undivided attention when we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and this way we can situate ourselves in pure devotional service, and then our mind becomes fixed, because it's all about the mind. The mind is also in the heart, and our mind is quite distracted, so we can't focus our mind on Krishna. So when we are giving our full attention, when we are situating ourselves in pure devotional service, so it's not just about what service we are doing, it has to come with the purity. So Prabhupada always talks about purity. He always says that purity is the force. So purity is which brings the strength in the devotional service, and that's what we talk about, sincerity. So, and also it's important that when we are hearing, we hear from the bona fide source, we hear from the right source, and that way we can feel the transformation in the heart. When we are hearing from a pure devotee, we can feel the transformation, we can feel that change in the heart. So again, it also depends, like here when Prabhupada says by sincere efforts to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, one realizes his constitutional relationship. So it also depends on on our individual desires, on what we desire, whether we really want to have Krishna in our heart, because Krishna only reciprocates when we want that. So it definitely depends on our desires, but also at the same time it depends on the blessings of the Lord and His devotees. So it's not just that we desire and we quickly receive that. It has to come by the blessings of the Lord, blessings from the devotees, and that can only happen when Lord is pleased, when the Lord's devotees are pleased by our service to them. So there has to be a proper attitude we have to have in our devotional service. There has to be a pure devotional attitude, and we have to develop that attitude with our sincerity that we really want this. We might be focused on our activities, but are we focused on what we want out of that activities? What we are doing in our devotional service, what are we looking to get out of it? So that attitude has to be pure, that attitude has to be devotional, and that has to be in the mood of sincerity. So, and then when we have that devotional attitude, and then when we are hearing Bhagavatam, we can feel that Lord becomes fixed in our heart. And this is something which we all can try ourselves. This is, of course, it's mentioned in the scripture, but we all can try for ourselves. Maybe we can give a challenge to ourselves, like a 1-week challenge, and just come regularly to hear Bhagavatam, or just read on our own with sincerity, and we will see that all this dust, which it says, dust of material association, we can feel that it's becoming cleansed. We can feel that we are getting closer to Krishna. When we hear so much from devotees, when we hear about devotees, we can feel that Krishna is reciprocating in the heart. So it has the main thing here. We are talking about is having that loving relationship. So we have to develop a relationship. To the degree we develop the relationship, we get the response from Krishna. So it has to be a loving relationship. It's all about love. It's not about what we have materially achieved in devotional service. It's all about loving. So we have to have that loving relationship, and this way we can see that these, and especially in this verse, it is talking about 3 things here. It's talking about, when we are talking about the cleansing the dust of material association, it says lust, anger, and hankering. So we will talk about it a bit later on this, that how these 3 things can be so much detrimental in our spiritual life, and how it can hamper our spiritual journey. Because specifically, it's not mentioned any other things. It just mentioned lust, anger, and hankering specifically. Of course, there are other material impurities also. Like there is lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, illusion. All those things are there, but they're all linked to each other. If you see, they're all from, as Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that from when we are meditating on material objects, the attachment develops, and from attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger develops. Right? So it's all linked. How it goes one by one. Thank you, Mandaji. So it all develops, how it all goes one by one. So now it's also mentioned about the autumnal rain here. The example is given as autumnal rain. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that we can clean like a small like a water tank by some chemical. And I was just hearing a lecture by some other devotee, and they mentioned that this chemical is something like an alum. I don't know how many of you have heard alum. It's called fitkari in Hindi. In India, they call it as. So it has the capacity to clean the dirt, but it can only do to a certain extent. Like here it says, it can just do to a water tank. But here we are talking about the whole world. So it cannot cleanse the whole muddy water. So it is limited in doing that. So that's why Prabhupada says here that by addition of some chemical, a small reservoir of water like that of a metropolitan water tanks can be cleared. But by such a tiny effort, it's not possible to clear up all the reservoirs of water like rivers. Because if you put the alum in the rivers, it's not going to make any difference. And that's how Prabhupada is referring to a powerful pure devotee. who can deliver not only his personal self, but also many others in his association. So we know that Prabhupada himself did that for the whole world. So now when we start in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, in the beginning, our consciousness might not be very clear because that's how we start, that's how we begin in our journey. But when we are constantly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam attentively, when we are engaging in devotional service, then automatically, like how we are talking about here, that mud is cleared, um, and everything gets cleared in the river, the dust gets settled. That's how it gets settled in our consciousness also, that all the dust of the material association. So that's why it's called as Nityam Bhagavata Seva. We always say this, that Nityam Bhagavata Seva. So we have to constantly do it. We have to regularly do it. Like in material endeavors, in material education, we do it for 3 years, 4 years, and we are done. We got our degree and we are done. But it doesn't work in spiritual life. We have to constantly hear, whether we are 5 years or 10 years in Krishna consciousness. But we don't have to leave this. We have to try as much as possible that constantly serve Srimad Bhagavatam by hearing, by reflecting. So when Prabhupada is mentioning about other processes, he is mentioning about mystic yoga. Shri Shri Radha Gokulanand ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ji ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Prabhupada is mentioning about saying that there are other processes such as mystic yoga. Now they are not so complete, they are not so effective, they are not so long lasting as the power of devotional service, because it can cleanse unlimited amount of people. It's not just for our own benefit, but it's for the benefit of the whole world. And there is actually unlimited amount of people who needs to be cleansed. So that's why Krishna is mentioning this. This reference of autumnal rain is there because Krishna wants to help the whole world, cleanse the whole conditioned souls. So this way, by devotional service, and even after spending unlimited births, even after spending like so many lifetimes in different births we have taken, just by hearing a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam, it helps us. It helps our heart to clean. So it's, and we can see that effect on us. When we are just here for few days, or just hear a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam, or even if we just read one verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, so it really helps us to get clean. So now we are talking about cleaning the heart. Here in the verse it says enters into the heart, and Prabhupada is emphasizing that we have to clean the heart. So why specifically Prabhupada is saying about, or here it's mentioned about cleaning the heart? Why not we are talking about maybe cleaning the brain, or why don't we talk about cleaning anything else? Anybody thought about it? Why is it just specifically we are talking about heart here? Yes, Mataji, thank you. So you want to say something? Love comes from the heart, and we are seated in the heart. Both the things are actually what I was going to say, that only. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the soul's position is in the heart. Soul is sitting in the heart, and the symptom of the soul is consciousness. How we know that the soul is there is the consciousness. So ultimately, we are talking about purifying the consciousness. So Prabhupada in one of his books he's mentioned that what is the purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement? Why we are in this movement? He says the purpose of this movement is purification of consciousness. Now, what we are ultimately here for, we all are here to purify our consciousness. We are doing so many activities. We are doing chanting, we are doing reading, we are doing hearing, but ultimately we have to see if it is working by how our consciousness is purified. That's the ultimate thing. If our consciousness is still polluted, that means there is some problem. That means not working. Maybe we are not putting that effort, or we are not being that attentive. Just by being there but not giving our attention doesn't make any difference. So ultimately, we are here to purify our consciousness, because our consciousness is the one which will take us to the next life, wherever we are going. Now at the moment we are having the best of the facility. We are on the human form of life. We are on the topmost state. So we can develop our consciousness. We can make it as a divine consciousness. We can elevate the consciousness. And that is the opportunity we have in human form of life. And that's how we will go to our next journey. That's how we will carry on our next journey. So it's important that we focus on purification of our consciousness. We have to just assess ourselves that how we are progressing by how much consciousness is cleared. How much we are conscious, how much we are Krishna conscious, how much we are aware. And that only is our result of all everything what we are doing. So sometimes we are so busy in our activities, we don't realize why we are doing what we are doing. We just keep doing, we keep doing things, but we have to sometimes take a pause and see, how are we going in the right direction? If we are doing anything, but if the consciousness is more polluted, if we are having more lust, if we are having more anger, if it is creating more hankering, then it's not devotional service. Then we are doing something else. So we have to see that this is our test, this is our measurement of our spiritual life, that these things should decrease. It might not go away. Obviously, it has been there for so many times. The dust could be very heavy, dust could be very light, we don't know. And it might not go away instantly, but at least it should come to a stage where it is decreasing, where we are able to control the lust, where we can control the anger, where we are able to control our hankerings. Of course, this is all in context of material context. Hankering for spiritual life is not bad, it's good. We should hanker for Krishna. So we are talking about hankering for material things, or anger for our own benefit, if we are looking at. So are we doing things for ourselves, or we are doing for Krishna? Because the tendency is to always hold back on things. So we want to see how much are we able to give rather than take. And that is what is purification of our consciousness. That is how we can see that our consciousness is getting purified. So this is so important. Prabhupada wants us. That's what Prabhupada says, that I want to change the way people think. That's what he wants us. And by changing our thinking, we'll be able to change our consciousness. And that can happen by constantly hearing, constantly being in the association of devotees, by trying sincerely. And then, of course, Krishna will come in the heart. Krishna will help us. So, and also, when we are talking about regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we have to be careful that we don't stop this process. Because the example I heard from a devotee in the lecture, what they mentioned is, when we are talking about this muddy water, that it clears the muddy water. So when we are hearing Bhagavatam, our consciousness gets cleared. But if we stop the association of devotees, if we, due to some bad association or something, if we again enter into material association, and if we again start to act in the material affairs of sense gratification, and not using anything for Krishna's service, this mud will come up again. It's like when the river is there, the mud is down, and we stir the water, the mud comes up again. So it's not that we have done it for a little while. Of course, Krishna never forgets our service. Krishna remembers what we have done. But that doesn't mean that we become lethargic or we become complacent we have to be very alert in our spiritual life. So it can happen that again everything can come up. All those, if it's bad association, if we are going back to the bad association, if we are getting back in the material affairs and we are not doing what we are doing or not continue, our consciousness can again become polluted. So it has to be constant efforts. So we don't want to waste what we have done. We have to carry on what we are doing. So we have to be careful on these things, and that's why it's very essential to hear Srimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis. We need to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. We need to hear the glories of Krishna daily, and this way we can cleanse our heart, and we can see that by hearing different pastimes. By hearing like. We're talking about lust. So I was just thinking that there was this pastime of Kashyap Muni and Diti, where she was so much into lust that she just couldn't control herself. And then Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakasha were born. That was a product of the lust. So how we have to, and that way we feel that okay, that lust has to be controlled. Then if we think about anger, we can see from so many pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam that devotees could control in different situations they could control their anger. Like example of Bali Maharaj, when he had to give up everything, he was not angry at all. He was just surrendered to the Krishna. So that surrender comes um, when we are sincere, and then we can overcome these uh, material association and hankering. Of course, there are so many examples that uh, when when we are into devotional service, when we are in loving relationship, so we can overcome this hankering. There were some few more points I wanted to actually share. If I think I have some time here. Yeah. So yeah. So I think coming back to the point of anger, as we were discussing, that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that when we are meditating on the objects of senses, we develop attachment, and from attachment comes lust, and then hankerings develop, and then when obviously the lust is unfulfilled, it develops anger, and from anger comes illusion, and from illusion we fall down. This is how Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. So it's so important, and anger is so powerful that it can really create a lot of problems. And Anger actually is the prime impetus. When somebody is very angry, it's just very difficult to make them understand the point. And if someone is angry for, in fact, it's said that anger is more dangerous than the lust, because if someone is lusty, they can be explained that, okay, lust is, you can explain them, okay, this is for your self interest, so you can do something. But when somebody is angry, they are not in the mood to listen at all. They would not even be ready to hear what you are saying. So we have to try, and as much as possible, try to control from the beginning our anger, because then it can take us really down if we are angry, and if we stay, like they're saying, if someone is angry for a long time, they would not there's no opportunity for them to progress in Krishna consciousness. So it is it's a enemy, it's a big enemy, anger, and it's coming from lust. So ultimately we have to control the lust, but we have to also be careful of our anger, because when anger develops, then there's not much anyone can do for them. It's called like a chronic anger. If it's acute, then there's not much you can do. So yeah, these are the material dust. This is material association which we have to get rid of, which we have to clear by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, very regularly, very sincerely, very attentively. And so it says, through the holes of the ears, it will enter into our heart, and Krishna will sit on the lotus flower of his loving relationship. So it's like Prabhupada says that we can see Krishna through our ears. So it's so important in our spiritual life that we have to keep hearing. We can see Krishna, but then by seeing Krishna also sometimes we don't understand Krishna. So we have to hear Krishna. We have to see Krishna through our ears, and that way we can feel that change. We can feel the transformation in our heart. And that's what it matters. What matters is transformation of our heart. That's where the love comes from. That's where the soul position is. That's where Krishna is, and that's where it will help us to move in our spiritual journey. So yeah, I mean, there's some more points, but I don't know how we are time-wise to, because if there are any points before we close. I mean, there's one pastime I can share just to finish this, because I heard this in the lecture, so I thought I'll just hear this about how anger can affect others. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's about Chitraketu. Chitraketu, he was visiting Kailash, and there, when he was visiting, he saw that he thought that Shiva was sitting with Parvati on his lap, and he thought there are so many great saints here and sages here, so it's not quite right that this is like Parvati is sitting like that on because it's a dharma sabha, so this may create some confusion to see someone sitting like in that position. So he went and he offered some kind of advice that it's not good if like Parvati sits on the lap of Shiva. So this way Parvati became very angry, and and here saying that who are you to advise Lord Shiva? You know, he was talking to Chitraketu like that, and he said that Lord Shiva is not an ordinary person, and he is not affected by ordinary desires, ordinary association. So she said that this way you have become very offensive, and then she cursed him to become a demon. So obviously that's a long pastime, but just trying to wrap up here. So she became angry. She cursed him to become an asura, and he was actually a personal associate of Anantadeva, and he had this benediction that he could travel everywhere in a special viman. So he came to the Kailash also in a special viman. So he had that kind of. So it was, on that level, he was a devotee. So it's not a small thing for someone having that kind of benediction. So he just came to the assembly and said a few words, and he got the curse from Parvati. And that curse was not a small curse. She said that, you become a asura. It's like the something which can be very worse. So his position was like from having traveling in a flying viman, and becoming a demon. From that to becoming a demon. So it's like straight from a heavenly condition to a hellish condition in a second. He got that curse. So this was a test for him. But then he also kept his patience. He says that he offered his obeisances to Parvati. He apologized. He begged for forgiveness. He said, I of course don't consider Lord Shiva to be like an ordinary person, but I was just trying to give advice. I was just trying to explain something. But whatever curse you have given me, I will accept that as your blessing. And I have all the respect for Lord Shiva, and no way would I like to offend him. So he said, that was not my intention to offend Lord Shiva, but he knew that when a curse is given, it can't be undone. So he took the curse, and then. But the thing is that something even said out of anger can be so detrimental to someone. So anger can be. We have to be careful of when we are angry. So we should try not to speak. Because it can be very much harmful for the other person. So, but then so ultimately Chitraketu requested for their blessing and he left. And then Lord Shiva was explaining to Parvati that for such a small thing you gave him such a big curse. You just told him to become a demon. So it was such a heavy punishment. But then of course he had to take a birth, and for a whole lifetime he had to be a demon, like a meat-eating demon. And then and then of course he took that reaction, and then in the next life I think he came back to his position. But so at the same time, we also have to be careful when we are dealing with devotees, when we are dealing with others. Try to be careful on what we are speaking, what we are saying, and also from our side also we have to try and control our anger, because that's also not good. So there are some things, a lot of points from here, but I'm aware of the time. So I think maybe we can take a pause here, and if there are any questions, any comments, any corrections on what we discussed. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
About Parvati, you just said, I had other questions and points, but this was the last one, and I consider it to be very important.
Sorry, it's a bit of echo in them. Maybe, I'll repeat your question. You can say, no problem. Correct. Correct. Correct.
But Parvati cursed him nevertheless in Prabhupada, and he says on this point that such is Parvati, and she is the mistress of this material world. And your problem is you are not
Hmm.
Like you've done something, you've done nothing to them, but still you get the evils,
Yeah.
you get the curses, you get the everything.
Yes.
And that's Parvati.
Brilliant.
And so our problem as devotees is that we are not afraid in
Not a
that
fraud.
case.
Wow. That's a wonderful point. Thank you so much, Mother. Thank
Sometimes we get even conditioned by the mother goodness, we think we know better.
you. Yes, yes, yes. That's
She
yeah.
has us all.
Yes. Material energy has her own way of. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful, beautiful point, Mother.
That's actually a very relevant point to my question, which was that sometimes you go on Bhakti Solution and you get all these things more natural. And we're devotees, we're trying to be very tolerant and we're trying to, carry on despite all these hardships.
That strength of tolerance. So, uh, what my of course we can go around and ask other devotees about this, but what my understanding is, we do go out, we do preach, but we also have to protect our own selves. You know, so we have to see how much we can do, and if we feel that it's not a comfortable situation for us, then we'll have to withdraw at some point, or we have to walk away at some point, because. And of course, this is a test for ourselves also, that how much uh, uh, strength we have, how much purity, like you said, how much purity we have. Um, but that doesn't mean that we should stop doing this. That doesn't mean that we don't do it. But we do as much as we can. And when this response comes, maybe Krishna is definitely teaching us something. Krishna wants us to grow. Krishna wants us to do more. Krishna wants us to go deeper in our spiritual practices so that we become more tolerant, we become more strong. Like how Prabhupada was, he always tolerated everything. There was nothing which he did not tolerate. So, but we are all learning and we are all growing. So, I think as and when the experience comes, we have to deal with it. That's what I feel. But if someone wants to add, maybe they can add something of their own. Yes, Mataji, yeah, please. Yeah.
I heard Srila Prabhupada saying something about exactly this point. He's saying that we are dogs, like everybody else in the material world, but we have a leash and a master. So when you approach someone and you preach to them about something you yourself
Hmm.
desire, they have what you also have, maybe in less degree, maybe now you
Hmm.
have more mercy and enlightenment,
Hmm.
but you actually know it very well what it is to have these material desires.
Hmm.
So we approach people from the point of view of, I know how you're feeling,
Hmm.
I'm saying this for you, I know how you're feeling, and I am also, I know that feeling, but my spiritual master is saying this.
Hmm.
So in this way, we will not be contaminated. Contamination like that, an uncomfortable feeling and scorching that we feel from the material nature comes
Hmm.
because of pride. Because we pick up from the person because we also have it.
Yeah.
But if we say, yes, I'm
Mm.
We preach as dependent dogs,
Mm.
not as I know better than you. Once we do that, then we pick up the condemnation
Got
because
it.
naturally pride is a sin. It cannot be forgiven in the
True.
spiritual
True.
realm.
True.
And that's why this happens.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right.
Sorry, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So just because for me it was like always interesting, and what I've heard from senior devotees as well, that when we actually chant Maha Mantra, our heart gets cleansed,
Mm.
and